were from the...
Welcome to another episode of the Dawn of Shades. I'm your host, Gia Scott, and today is June 29th, 2010, and this is episode 415. More about this program and the guests that have provided us with such fascinating conversations can be found on our website, www.exogenynetwork.com. The Dawn of Shades always tries to bring interesting people right to the audience to hear about both new and old ideas. We try to focus on the things that don't always make the mainstream news, the types of events that are frequently labeled as alternative or paranormal. Now, for the show tonight, if you would like to have a question asked, you can email me at giascott@exogenynetwork.com, or send it through the virtual auditorium on Pal Talk by text. I do monitor the emails during the program, so if you're listening outside of the virtual auditorium and would like to have a question asked, just go ahead, email it to me, and I'll get it asked for you. In the virtual auditorium, just put it into text, and I'll try and catch it as the screen scrolls. If I don't catch it the first time, go ahead and feel free to repeat it again. Now, for those of you who are listening on a podcast, please go ahead and email me, too. I'll try and get your questions answered for you as well. Now, for those who like to feel connected, you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter, too. And there's even a Dawn of Shades fan page. I've got blogs and all sorts of things. And so you're sure to find something. There's links for most of it, which are found right on the website itself. Now, tonight's program is focusing on the BP oil spill. If you want to Google and search for oil spill conspiracies, you'll find a myriad of options. I'm not kidding. There's more pages about conspiracies than I even could possibly imagine. There's a lot of reason for that, even if you aren't one inclined to believe in conspiracies. All of the secrecy surrounding the spill, the restricted access to certain areas, the continuing spill, and the apparent bungled responses all provide ample fuel to feed these conspiracies. It makes the average citizen sit down and say, what is really going on out there? Now, for those with more tendencies towards the intuitive, it's been a very strange experience. Confusing images, uneasiness, sensations of dread, they've all been associated with the spill itself, with the intuitives that I've spoken with. My own experience with the cartoonish rendition of Godzilla that I've dubbed Spillzilla, and the idea that something horrible is out there growing in the Gulf, led me to the coast in search of enlightenment about what I was really seeing. I contacted a number of people who regularly deal with other intuitives to find out what, if anything, anyone else was experiencing. In a way, think about it. Images of a cartoon monster delivering death and destruction to southeastern Louisiana is the sort of stuff that gets people designated as crazy and delusional. My logical side said that this is totally ridiculous, and my intuitive side remained quite insistent about the strange symbolic imagery. It isn't easy to decipher it. I heard about intuitives who were told to leave various points of the Gulf Coast. I questioned the wisdom of my own hours spent within sight or a few miles of the coast itself. I heard about potential explosions that could result in the entire Gulf's waters losing their buoyancy, resulting in the deaths and loss of every ship and man out there. I heard of visions of poisonous gases spraying up from the sea into the air, killing everyone in its vicinity. I heard about the death of the Gulf, resulting in the new Dead Sea and the foul stench that would cover the coastal regions for months afterwards, further driving people inland and out of its reach. I was also told of biblical prophecies and how the oil was a sign of the end times. So, all of that, all of the time that I spent prowling the Mississippi Gulf Coast from New Orleans, all of my own disgust at my own apparent loss of logic, led me to make a few more phone calls. Among the people I called was November Hanson, a longtime associate of mine, as well as the radio host herself on the Paranormal Radio Network. And she hosts the Voice of the People, which airs on Saturdays. I called Washali, another radio host whom I've long sought advice and information on a variety of topics from. In addition to these two radio hosts, who also speak with numerous other people, we'll be joined tonight by Linda Drake, who channels from Abraham and has her own unique information to deliver. Our discussion about the oil spill tonight isn't about specific scientific expertise or any one expert's opinion. It's focusing more on the paranormal aspects of the spill, what is happening, what it could mean to you, to me, and to every other person on this planet. It looks at the oil spill not as an economic or ecological disaster, which it undoubtedly qualifies as, but from a more non-physical perspective. If you're seeking scientific studies and similar information, we're not going to be delivering statistics and probabilities. Tonight we're going to be talking about possibilities. So, ladies, we're going to start off by alphabetical orders, which seems like the most logical thing to use tonight. So, Linda, you're in the hot seat first. Would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, I'm Linda Drake, and I am an intuitive, a medium, and a channel for the group Consciousness of Abraham. So the messages that I will share with you this evening are from them, from this group Consciousness that is here to bring us the wisdom of God and to help us heal ourselves, our planet, and our own consciousness. And so that's what Abraham brings to us, and that's what I am going to be channeling for you this evening.
Okay. And November, you're next.
Hello, everyone. My name's November Hanson. I'm the host of Voice of the People Radio, which is on Saturdays from 6 to 8 Pacific. My website's voiceofthepeopleradio.com. And I came along because I'd emailed a question to Gia. I was wondering what the intuitives were thinking about this oil spill. And I have some thoughts of my own that I will share as we get further into the program.
Okay, and Wishali, with the most beautiful purple website in all the planet, it's your turn.
That's right, purplev.com. V is in Violet. It's the most beautiful purple website in all of Internet land. And I'm the author of You Are What You Love, the companion playbook to You Are What You Love, and Wisdom Rising. And my books are based on the wisdom of the great Swedish mystic Emanuel Swedenborg. His last name, if you want to Google him, if you've not heard about him, will absolutely astonish you, is you spell his last name Sweden, like the country Sweden, and then B-O-R-G. And I'm a life management expert, so my contribution is kind of a little different. The other ladies have more insight on, especially Linda, on channeled spiritual intelligence on this, and mine is more, what can we do to make this be something that has an evolutionary gift in our life for us?
Okay. So, nobody can deny this oil spill thing is a huge, huge problem. I don't care what angle you want to look at it from. But in terms of, you might say, the non-physical side, like I said, my own thing was I have this really annoying image of this rather cartoonish Godzilla sort of monster that's, growing out there and it's going to come get Louisiana. It's crazy, all right? And I know it's crazy, but it's really been persistent, and it annoyed me and aggravated me and irritated me until I really started looking at the whole situation as bigger than just, as big as it is, bigger than just an ecological and environmental disaster, bigger than an economic disaster, which, nobody can deny. It's all of those things already. And still, the oil flows. So what have any of you others, had any, I know something was irritating you because you started the dialogue between the two of us with your question about, have you heard? And, that inspired me to say, okay, maybe I'm not as nuts as I think I am.
Right. Well, Georgia, I've had a few thoughts on this. When we first had our global economic meltdown, when was this, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I went back and I studied the Great Depression, more specifically what was happening in the country prior to the Great Depression. And a lot of those things actually reoccurred again. And I know throughout history you can have pockets of where history actually repeats itself. So I wondered if we weren't getting a repeat of the Great Depression, just some of the things look a little bit different. Well, during the Great Depression, there was this thing called the Dust Bowl. Created a mass migration in the United States. And I hadn't seen anything like that. So I had to wonder, is the Gulf oil spill going to be this depression's mass exodus?
Yeah, so many people fleeing from the Gulf Coast. There's been a lot of imagery that has been relayed to me revolving about that. Now, Linda, what does Abraham have to say about all that?
Well, Abraham, when you were talking about, this Godzilla creature, Abraham does. He does compare that to the fear that we all experience. And when you were talking about when November was talking about the Dust Bowl and how history repeats itself, that's what Abraham has been telling us, is that history does repeat itself over and over again, and each time it gets more intense. And so that's what we're going through right now. And yes, you are, Abraham says, we are going to see a migration of people going to safety. I mean, every time there's a disaster in a certain area of our world, people move away from that area because they even though it doesn't reoccur, they still hold the fear of it reoccurring. But yes, your Godzilla creature that you've talked about, that you've envisioned, is fear, and we all deal with fear. It's within all of us. God created us all with the light and the dark within us, and so we fear the darkness, whether it's in us or whether it's occurring around us or whether it's in somebody else. And that fear is what is so detrimental to humanity. Now, things are going to occur. Abraham has been talking for quite some time about the disasters that will be occurring around our planet. And you referred to it being the end of times. Yes, this is the end of times. When the final end gets here, who knows? Yet, we are going to be experiencing more and more and more of earthly disasters, human-created disasters, as this one is, or has appeared to be. Yet Abraham says it doesn't matter how it was created, it's what we learn from it. Because with each challenge in our lives, this is an opportunity to change our thinking and to grow and to evolve and to find better ways of doing things, better ways of surviving. And so they said that this oil disaster, as bad as it is, and it is bad, it is bad for humanity, it's bad for Mother Earth, it's bad for our oceans. It's going to take thousands of years to recover to some of these pristine areas and the wildlife that we have, to get them back to their health. And for us, so our planet may never evolve to where it was in our lifetimes. And so Abraham just says it's very, very important that we understand the importance of this, not ignoring it, but making a conscious effort to change our actions, to change how we live.
Now, we do have a question in the virtual auditorium, and they're curious about Abraham. So if you could explain Abraham to the audience a little bit better, it might help them understand.
Abraham is not, I hear one voice, yet it is a whole consciousness, group consciousness of voices. And it's the same Abraham that you may have heard of that channels through Esther Hicks. It's the same group. They channel through many different channels in different ways. They give the same messages through me as they give through her. I just present it in a little bit different way.
That makes absolute sense because we all deliver. And so the question is, it's a group of people. I would say it's not people, but more pool.
No, it's not people. Okay. No, it's highly evolved beings that we are in this human body and our human consciousness. We do have a limitation of what we're able to comprehend in these physical bodies. And with the group consciousness of Abraham, it's totally different than that. They have no limitation. And they
the standard saying I always have is that about the time we develop some sense and figure out what to do with ourselves, our bodies start to fall apart and betray us. And in its wake goes our minds. It's not fair.
But that is so true.
Limitations. Yeah, we have limitations, and relatively short ones. So, in all of this stuff, I've heard all sorts of wild conspiracies. What kinds of things have any of you heard?
Mostly what I've heard is from the various people. Well, actually, I got to be honest. This disaster has been very unusual. We've had disasters in the past, and the people that I would label as intuitives will actually contact me ahead of time and say, something's coming up, and maybe they have water, or maybe they have, I don't know, they have something going on. Maybe it's a dream, a feeling, or whatever it is. And this has happened several times over the past. With this particular disaster, nobody said anything, absolutely nothing ahead of time. It was almost as if sometimes you have these intuitive warnings about something that's going to be an enormous impact. But this particular one is an enormous impact, yet there was nothing out there for the intuitives to grab a hold. So I thought, so different.
Well, the only thing I can say is that I did hear some vague stuff about a risk in the Gulf or the New Orleans area, but it was very, very vague. And the time frame was, right approximately, because but it was still, the oil spill actually occurred a little earlier than most of what the other stuff was. I actually initially interpreted the other stuff that I was hearing as, it must relate to storm season because it was connected to storm season. So I wonder if people did connect it to the wrong things because the warnings were vague. I mean, even, my Godzilla monster isn't exactly, a very specific kind of warning.
I didn't get any warnings in the way that you classically think of them, but I've talked to a couple of channeled spiritual teachers since then. One of them is Sophia, that comes on my Friday radio show once a month, and asked her about the oil spill. And I talked to another channeled spiritual teacher about the oil spill, and they both usually typically have a different kind of perspective, as people do. And Sophia was saying that this has a lot to do with the timing as we're moving towards 2012, when there's going to be a consciousness shift and we are going to demand a refiguration of how things are organized. And this event is part of that, leading up to people saying that there is not going to be capitulation for this slimy, oozy, toxic way that the government and big business has been allowed to operate, and that this is part of us taking our power back.
Uh-huh.
And the other spiritual teacher that I talked to was coming more from a planet Earth perspective. And what they were sharing with me, and Linda, if you could touch bases with the Abraham Group and, as they say in the military, either confirm or deny this. This other spiritual teacher was saying that because I had asked them about the large methane lake bubble out in the Gulf Coast. I don't know if you know about that, but around the area of the drilling is speculated to be a 15 to 20 mile in diameter lake bubble of methane gas. And should that get ignited, it would devastate all of Florida and obviously a good section of other states and the Gulf Coast and the Gulf itself. It would be the equivalent of Vesuvius erupting. And I was talking to this other channeled spiritual being about that particular issue, and they were saying that is out there, but that's not the biggest concern. On a scale of 1 to 10, they said they would put that one erupting on a 4, And the biggest concern is something that is not being put out there, something that the media is not reporting on, probably because they don't know. You got to go to a channeled spiritual teacher to hear this. But what this channeled spiritual teacher was saying is that BP was told, or Transatlantic Ocean, whoever you want to label as being the party or entity in charge of the actual physical drilling itself, they were told and instructed not to go as deep as they did. But they ignored that for greedy reasons, and they tapped into a Platonic fissure. So they have gotten into one of the major faults on the Earth that's where all the soil is coming from, is a Platonic fissure from a Platonic fault line. So what they could do is erupt this massive movement, this traumatic seizure along this major fault line. And that's what this channeled spiritual teacher was telling me is really the overwhelming issue with what's happening right now. So I don't know, Linda, if you're able to get anything on additional commentary on that.
Abraham says that yes, you have hit on some major points that humanity has not considered, and they do say that the explosion, the original explosion, was man-made. In other words, it was a conspiracy. It was, if you want to say it as a conspiracy, Abraham says it was intentional. But it did not, they had no concept of it being this big, of it, of the results being as they have turned out to be. They were just trying to sabotage the drilling. Yes, we did. They did tap into something that is major, that is going to cause they said, a major disruption of the Earth energy. And because of this, and again, we have not seen the worst of it. We think by capping this off that is going to make everything better, and that it is just the oil that has been released that is going to be the problem. And they're saying no. What has occurred is much, much more, and okay, thank you, I hadn't considered that. They said, and what is continuing to occur. So the drilling that they are continuing to do to try to stop this oil leak is continuing to tap or disrupt the energy, the core energy of the Earth. And yes, we are going to see from this, we are going to see, Abraham says, it was a major insult to Mother Earth. Yes, Mother Earth does have a consciousness, just as we do. And Mother Earth has been supporting our lives, our energy for millions and millions of years. And we have insulted Mother Earth. And I hadn't even considered them either. We had British Petroleum had been given messages from many different sources that they would not typically rely on to not drill in this area and not drill to this depth, because the angelic realm was trying to stop it, trying to protect the Earth. And now we have gone beyond where we should have gone. And Linda, we have created something.
I keep hearing about, I'm sorry, sweetheart, I keep hearing about August.
Yes. I've been getting some really strong messages about things to come in August. And these are Earth events. These are like where this oil spill was created by man. It's the Earth events that we're going to see. Mm-hmm. Okay, and Abraham is just saying that he's wanting to make everybody aware that the third week in May, which was around the 25th, humanity experienced a major, major energy shift, the biggest that humanity has ever experienced, that opened up our awareness. It opened up the potential for our awareness beyond anything we've ever known. And probably only some of you may have felt the shift or felt the uneasiness or the agitation of the energy shift and not realize what had went on. Because we go through energy shifts all the time as they keep raising the bar for us. And but now there is no limitation to what we can experience because of this energy shift that we went through. So we were hitting a ceiling. Those of us that had been working to raise our awareness and had hit a ceiling, and now the ceiling is gone. But now we have to take responsibility for our power.
You know, and that you know, sort of shifts the responsibility because everybody wants to point their fingers and say, it's BP's responsibility, it's the federal government's responsibility, it's somebody else's responsibility. And then those same agencies are, of course, doing it to each other, directing responsibility away from themselves. You know, we're seeing
but we have to take the We have to take the responsibility for what we need to change in our own lives and promote the change of. And, of course, sending our energy, our blessings, and our prayers to Mother Earth every day is essential.
Linda, do you get any specifics about what's going to happen in August or what particular area is going to be the epicenter of the impact?
I would be interested because Linda's not the only one who has said August. I've heard that from several people.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a major time because, remember, our limitations, you know, on how powerful we are at manifesting things, and we don't realize how powerful we are. So if we want to focus on fear, we create fear. But if we want to focus on, you know, being empowered through our knowledge and our awareness and our preparation, that you know, changes the whole situation. But yes, we are going. Abraham has told me over and over again, especially in the last couple of weeks, that be prepared for August. And I go, okay, is it my life? Is it, you know, just the United States? Is it global? And they keep saying it will affect global and it will affect the United States financial situation. And I said, okay, is that so? Is it something that's going to occur on the United States? And they said yes. So, but they've not revealed. They just give me, as all of you know, they give you like pieces to the puzzle. And we began putting those pieces together as the time grows near. But August, hang on, they keep saying, hang on for August.
Hang on for August. You know, for those of us who are swimming through oil-contaminated waters on various days, August seems like a very long ways away. And at the same time, it's not very far away. Time passes so very, very quickly.
But this is Linda brings up a tremendously valuable point, which is, what are you going to practice? And this is why I talk so much and write so much and teach so much about you've got to take your power back on the little things. You've got to practice saying, I trust that divine love and wisdom is the only power I recognize. It's running everything. This is somehow evolving my soul. That's what I trust. That's what I show up for fearlessly, because when you can do it with the little things, when the big things come down the pike like this, you have that skill when you need it. But it's never too late to practice that skill. It's never too late to say, you know what, at the end of the day, maybe I cannot control how much oil is coming out of the ground. Maybe I can't control how far they drilled. Maybe I can't control how many pelicans and dolphins and sea life and delicate marsh ecosystems are being impacted by this. But at the end of the day, I can control whether I showed up as a force of love in this equation, seeing this as an opportunity for love to show up and create its miraculous healing expression of wholeness and pulling us all together to wake up, all together to act as one, all together to take our power back, or at the end of the day, I can be the person that says, you know what, I'm going to sign up to be a victim yet again. That's what we have control over, is what we give our attention to and what we do with our free will.
That's very true. And a lot of times we forget how much personal power we each have. You know, we always want to just let it happen to us, and we don't realize really how much influence. So many times we go through our days of misery, you know, be it relationships or jobs or location we're living in or our neighbors or whatever, and we let them all irritate us and suck away our own personal power, and then we wonder, well, why am I so miserable? Why am I feeling this way? And it's because you've been passing out your power like you have an unlimited fund here, and we need to take it back. And like you said, if you start with the little things, then these big things just become another speed bump.
Exactly. You have the skill when you need it. And November and Linda, I would love your input on this. I've been approaching this as an opportunity to pray for divine wisdom to manifest for the best possible outcome, not according to my agenda, not according to my ego's agenda, but according to love and wisdom, divine love and wisdom, that I'm asking divine love and wisdom to manifest the best possible outcome out of this, and I'm asking divine love and wisdom to bring the best possible outcome. I'll show up and do the work. You bring the best possible outcome. And I'm just wondering if you have some thoughts on that, some embellishment on that, how you've been turning this over in your own little fur-covered head.
You know, I'll go ahead and address that first. That's a really good question because, okay, I'm up here in Oregon, and I'm like, so what am I going to do about a BP oil spill? You know, that could potentially devastate the entire country. The reason why I say that is because there is an economic impact, too. When there's a disaster, natural disaster, wherever it is in the United States, and sometimes even globally, it takes 3 to 6 months for it to really work its way into the system to where November over here in Oregon is going to feel some kind of impact over it. And, you know, honestly, I'm not getting a lot of answers on this. This has been the most perplexing event I've ever witnessed. I'd like to think it would just go away, but I don't see that. I think it's going to be for a long time. So how do you deal with it? The only way I know how to deal with anything like this is you start at home first. That's the best you can do. Make sure you've got things in order there, and then radiate it outwards. And if everybody did that, there'd probably be all kinds of answers, solutions. I don't know. Maybe this oil spill is above what humanity or humans, you know, technology-wise, are capable of dealing with. That is a point that we may have to realize.
Well,
so
it's
you're
not
thinking
above what we can deal with, but it does make us think. It does make us think about, you know, what's going on right now. How can we fix it? How can we change it? How can we prevent it in the future? And so, see, it does. All change makes us grow. All challenge pushes us, you know, to our limits and beyond, because it does force us to grow. And it forces us, again, as we talked before, about taking responsibility. And I love the way you said, start at home. Start at home. What do I need to do to change my life, to be more responsible for my spending, my, you know, whether it's my recycling, whatever. What am I doing to take care of my planet? You know, not just my life, but my planet. Because we all live here. Yet we have the responsibility of caretaking of this planet, because Mother Earth has been the caretaker of us for billions of years. So why can't we turn around and give back to her? So giving her blessings and prayers and, you know, calling in the white light for our lives and for the earth and for those that are suffering, the animals, the birds, all the fish, everything that is suffering through this. Because you're right. And history says that it takes 3 to 4 months, 3 to 6 months actually, for us to really see the financial devastation of this.
And we'll all
so
see it. And some
we're all
form or
going to see it.
fashion, we're all going to see it.
Because, Jill, you see it right now in your life because it's in your backyard. Yet, those of us that are, in Oregon or even Texas or Florida's getting to see it now. And, thank you. Abraham just said, Florida's going to see a lot more of it. And that is part of the earth disaster or earth challenges that we are going to see in August is Florida.
Is this hurricane related or different than that?
I seem to think it's hurricane. But it's multiple things. Abraham says, do not focus on one, fearing one thing, and do not fear any of it. Know that these are earth related disasters. Earth-related disasters. Okay, earth-related disasters. Do you understand what that means?
Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes.
Yes. And hurricane takes, humanity created the oil spill, yet a hurricane can cause much more disaster, devastation than what the oil is doing right now. And then we're also going to be hit by financial challenges. Even today, the stock market took a big drop.
Oh, I know in terms of the economy on the Gulf Coast, okay? You're seeing people not wanting to eat seafood. That affects the restaurant industry. We've seen very old seafood houses shutting down in Louisiana, probably forever. We've seen suicides among people who've made their living from fishery, whether it was charter boats or fishing itself or running a fish house, whatever. There have been people who filed claims from the seafood industry against BP because of their loss of income. We're seeing the trickle down because not everybody realizes how big fishing was to New Orleans itself and all along the Gulf Coast. All of these little ports had shrimp boats and charter boats and everything else going out. People came to the Gulf Coast to go fishing, to go gambling, to enjoy the beaches. Guess what we don't have? Nobody wants to come down and see the oil slick. Maybe we ought to promote that more. But in the meantime, nobody wants to eat seafood. They're afraid of contamination, even though the seafood industry is being heavily tested, probably more heavily than it ever has before, in search of contamination in the various kinds of seafood. So we're seeing, already in New Orleans and the Gulf Coast, we're seeing a profound impact. People I talked to that were told to leave the coast by their source, be it Abraham or whatever pool of consciousness they were tapped into, they were in Louisiana and in the Florida Panhandle, ones I know specifically of. Why those two locations and not Mississippi? I have no idea. I don't know if Abraham has any ideas, Linda?
Abraham says the entire Gulf Coast is going to experience a devastation, whether it's just a sense of devastation or it is the reality of devastation. They are going to experience it. And they're not just limiting New Orleans or the Florida Panhandle. They're talking about the entire Gulf Coast being affected by this.
Uh-huh. So I wonder why in the cases I've talked to, it's just been those two locations that people have they're the ones that have actually paid attention and picked up and left. And they've already long gone.
That's where they lived. That's where they lived. So their guides were focusing on protecting them.
Uh-huh.
But Abraham says, yes, some areas will be hit harder, but yet most of this area is still in recovery from, the previous hurricanes.
Yeah.
New Orleans has never gotten back to where it was and never will. Yet it is still in a sense of recovery, and there is still hope there. But with this type of devastation of, this oil spill and how it's affecting, as you said, everybody, because when an industry like that is affected, it ripples out to everybody in that area. And then it begins rippling out to the whole country. So, yes, this is going to create a major change.
Linda, does Abraham say that this ties into the whole landscape of 2012 at all?
Yes. Unfortunately, he does speak about, oh, thank you. He's just now talking about, he says you were talking about the methane gas. He says, yes, there is a lake or a pool of methane gas that we are already very close to tapping into, and that is going to be a major factor because, yes, 2012, yes, it is coming. We all heard the rumors. We all have gotten messages about it. And, yes, 2012, the change of our consciousness is coming. Each person perceives it differently on how it's going to affect their life, but what Abraham has continued to say is there will be major earth changes leading up to that time and going beyond that time, because Abraham speaks of a time beyond 2012 that we will go through major changes, and our planet will not look like what it looks like now because of these changes.
It's so hard to look at 2012 because we've heard such conflicting information about it, from the end of the world to its shift in consciousness to an end of an era, all sorts of things. Could Abraham clarify exactly what changes are to be expected in 2012?
They said everybody will experience it in a different way. Yes, there will be a major exodus of people and that's normal for us. We go through cycles, and our planet has experienced, what we see as disasters or challenges, and God just sees it as, a large group of His children coming home. But there will be a lot of change around us, and some spirits will choose, it will have already been their appointed time, or they may choose to leave because of the challenges. But it's a raising of our consciousness. That's the important part of learning how to see things in a different way. And by 2012, that's what we will be experiencing, a total change of consciousness. As I said earlier, we went through this major shift on May 25th, approximately that date, May 25th, and it just took the ceiling away. So now we can raise our consciousness to whatever we desire and perceive things in whatever way we want. So we can see the darkness and the fear, and we can consume our lives with that, or we can empower ourselves through taking responsibility, through prayer, pulling in the light for us, for those around us, for opening our hearts. Abraham says this will be a time of learning to open your heart and to have compassion for others, and to not, yes, you will be in a survival mode of taking responsibility for your own life, but you'll also learn, as we do in each disaster, Abraham says, in each disaster, whether it's on our continent or whether in country or on another continent or another country, each time this occurs, we learn to open up our hearts, open up our, he calls it our pocketbook, but open this up and give compassionately to those that are hurting. And that's what we are learning through each one of these disasters. And so that's the positive thing of these disasters, but is the growth that we will experience. But yes, we are coming. Abraham continues to say, we are coming to, as humanity has been promised, the end of time. Yet, is it 2012? Is it 2020? Is it 2030? Abraham will not confirm that, because they said each person here on this planet this time, is approaching the end of their life.
Right.
Whether
we're starting
they're 90 years old.
Yeah. Whether you're 90 or you're 1, you're closer than you were before you were born.
Exactly, and that is part of your agreement or the contract you made when you came into this lifetime.
So, I don't think it's the actual end of time. I think it's just a great change. And I think what really got me thinking about that was the word, is it Armageddon or apocalypse? Apocalypse in Hebrew actually means great change. So, yeah, it'll be the end of time as we knew it. But it doesn't mean the world's going to suddenly explode and nobody exists anymore. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's.
And that's what Abraham won't give me confirmation on. He just says humanity will experience a great change. And whether that change occurs, in my lifetime or my children's lifetime, we are continually in a sense of change. But 2012 is definitely designated as a major changing point. But then again, he keeps talking about time beyond that. So I do not, in my perception, I do not believe that the Earth is going to explode in 2012. He keeps saying major changes.
Now, I agree with
humanity
that.
has always experienced change.
Right. It is a constant. I agree. Absolutely. There will be, and we could go through periods of great turbulence, major earthquakes, major volcanoes. I mean, the Gulf disaster, who would have ever thought about that in any prophecy book, And, I mean, there could be other things out there that we're just not even aware of that could come up. But I do believe with what Shali was saying and what Linda was saying earlier, too, is that there are lessons to be learned in this. Will we learn the lessons? If you look in our history, mankind's not very good about learning its lessons.
No, but
we're not good about learning lessons. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Linda.
We're not good about learning. The whole reason Abraham is working with humanity at this time is we're not good about learning lessons to use in our own relationships, much less in the responsibility that we take for our lives and our planet. So even in our lives, you will see how your lessons keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger if you choose not to learn them. Well, that's what humanity is going through with the support of our planet.
In terms of humanity's development alone, I kind of look on humanity as not unlike a child. Now, as a child develops, they don't always develop equally. They may go through stages where their legs are too long, or their hands are too big, or their nose is too big, or whatever. And eventually, all their body parts catch up. They do the same thing when they're learning. They may leap ahead in one subject and lag behind in another. And eventually, they sort of get it all together so they're at about the same level. Humanity has done the same thing. Over the last 150 years, we have made massive leaps forward in terms of our physical world, in terms of technology, in terms of science, in terms of medical ability. We have made advances that weren't even dreamed of 500 years ago. With all these advances in our physical world, we've made very little headway in terms of our spiritual or non-physical world. And I kind of see 2012 as the precipitating point when we switch and we start developing our non-physical selves.
Abraham agrees with that and says you have a very good point there and likes the way you presented it because you gave us a visual of what we are actually going through. Oh, well, the truth, he says.
In thinking about it, that's the only logical explanation for what we're looking at, for all this awakening of our consciousness, for all this enlightenment we're all seeking. It's never been this prevalent among such a percentage of the population. Well, why are we seeing that? Well, because it's about time for the focus to change. We've accomplished a great deal in our physical world, and then we've learned with things like the BP oil spill, we aren't as smart as we thought. We're fixing to get spanked hard on that one, I'm afraid. And that, I think, was going to actually help us to learn to pay attention to our non-physical selves.
Our awareness of ourselves as non-physical beings as a force of love is why we're here. It's why the Planet Earth classroom was created. And I think you made a very interesting point that evolution will offer us an invitation to grow and to learn. And we have free will. And if we decide not now, then that tapping will get louder, that invitation will become more exacerbated, and the need to grow into why we're here will not go away. But your calling, your invitation, your opportunity to learn it can become increasingly more and more heightened if you continue to go against the purpose of why you were created and why this earth is here.
It's hard to take a look at the oil spill and all the ripples that have already come out from that fiery center, and to see it in terms of a spiritual experience. It's really tough for those who are experiencing the economic disaster of it. It's tough for the ones that have lost loved ones as a result of it. How can we really put it into perspective? What can we do as individuals to sort of gain a grip on this, and in the process gain a grip on what we really should be paying attention to begin with? That's a big question.
Do we have time to go into that right now, sweetheart, or do you have to take a break?
We're about to take a break. We have about 1 minute to take a break. So, November, you have any last thing you want to say real quick before we go to break?
Last thing before we go to break. No.
Sorry.
Right.
No, you got a quick comment?
Abraham says that we have to understand it was the greed of humanity that put us in the situation of drilling for this oil.
Yep.
And the misuse of of the responsibility of this. And so that greed is what put us in this situation, the darkness of that greed. So, those that created the situation, and they're not just talking about BP. They're talking about those that actually caused this disaster.
Okay, folks, hang on to those greedy little thoughts. It is time for our break, and while we're away from your computer, do check out our website, www.exogenynetwork.com. Stay tuned, and the Dawn of Shades will return with our guests, Linda Drake, Washali, and November Hansen. Welcome back to the Dawn of Shades. I'm your host, Gia Scott, with our guests tonight, Washali, Linda Drake, and November Hansen. And once again, I would like to remind everyone to visit our website, www.exogenynetwork.com. You can sign up for the newsletter, wander around, explore the website, and let me know what you think of it. We've also got a giveaway for a DVD, and it's about crop circles, and I have to admit, I forgot the title. Shame on, it's called What on Earth? And there's links there to take you to blogs, Twitter, and Facebook as well. If you want to go straight to the blog, it's giascott.wordpress.com. Maybe you can find out what kinds of things I've been up to lately. Now, if you have a question that you wish to have asked, you can email it to me at giascott@exogenynetwork.com. I am monitoring the email during the program with November, Linda Drake, and Washali tonight, and I'm trying real hard not to miss anything. So, ladies, I asked a big bombshell question just before we went on break. We had a little bit of time to think about it. And what do you think that we can do to help put this oil spill situation, as well as the other big events in our lives, into better perspective?
I guess I'll go first. What can we do about the oil spill situation? Well, to be honest, I have never really thought of exactly what to do except, keep the hope that it goes away, the hope that it can't get any worse. But also keeping the realities. The realities are, okay, so what if it does get worse? What if we all start to see serious impact? All right, so make a plan. My grandfather was the wisest old man. He made things just so simple. November 1st, you have a plan, and then you figure out how you're going to make it happen. You know what? If you really apply that, it is amazing what you can do.
Uh-huh.
So right now my plan is to, sit and wait. I don't know what else really to do, to be honest. I mean, it's not like I'm going to fly down and help clean up some birds. I can be verbal about it. I do have a radio program. I don't like the idea of BP burning turtles and other wildlife alive to get rid of the oil. Come on, there's got to be a better way than that. I don't know, supporting the places that are doing things, news agencies that bring on people that come up with innovative ideas on what they can do, those types of things. Beyond that, I'm not sure exactly, what to do. To be honest, I really don't know.
How about you, Linda? You got anything to say on this?
Personally, each time I go to Abraham and go, and every morning I go to Abraham and go, okay, what is my purpose? What are we supposed to learn from this? And he says that's exactly the question. What are you supposed to learn from this? What are each of us supposed to learn about our own darkness or our own greed? Because as they started to say earlier before we took our break, the situation was created by man, not really realizing the devastation that would result from it. But now BP is having to, deal with their own greed. So it rippled out. They may not have created the situation. Well, Abraham says, yes, they did in their drilling, but they didn't create the explosion. But now they're having to deal with the consequences of their drilling. And so we should each, instead of just blaming everything on them and expecting them to take full responsibility for everything that's happened, we have to take responsibility in our own lives and working with the light in our life instead of the darkness. And, doing prayer is very powerful. We've all seen the miracles that get created through prayer. So prayer is very powerful. Meditation, where we release all of the stress and the darkness from our life, so we're pulling in the white light to our own physical and mental body, so that, we're able to see things, perceive things without fear, with hope. As November was talking about, having that hope in your life every day is the most important thing that we can have, whether it's hope for our financial situation or our physical situation or the situation of our planet. Having hope and looking for ways, that hope allows us to look for ways to help whether it's the fishermen or whether it's the people that make their living, through the tourist business on the coastline. Helping them in any way we can.
Yeah. Well, Shali, what do you have to say on that?
One of the things that it seems most important to learn on the planet Earth is that we are divine love and wisdom. We don't have it, we are it. It's not a matter of being deserving and worthy. It's a matter of claiming it and aligning your self-identification with that truth that sets you free. And seeing this as not having more power than we do. We are divine love and wisdom. We existed before this problem, will exist after this problem. To not give our power away, to seeing this as having more power than we do. There's an expression in esoteric Buddhism. There was a teacher that used to talk about reality in this way. He would talk about reality as or things that happen to us, life as it unfolds, as objects in the field of reality. And when you start talking about objects in the field of reality, that takes a lot of the charge out of it. That takes a lot of the ethical negotiation for good or bad out of it, and it makes it ethically neutral, morally neutral. And it just makes it about how are you going to respond to this object in the field of reality. Are you going to respond to it in a way in which you throw your divinity under the bus? Or are you going to respond to it in a way in which you can say, I can be love now, and I came to this planet to be realized love unconditionally, and no matter what happens, no one and no thing can change the fact that I am divine love right now. And if I can be love now with this and through this, I am realized God consciousness unconditionally. And I see this as an opportunity for us to realize that we created our reality by our choices, by how we're dreaming this life, by how we're dreaming this existence. And we can choose to dream a different reality. I love to see this as an opportunity to what I call keep it real. It's the keep it real arena. So this gives us an opportunity to wake up every day and to visualize this explosion of love consciousness is superseding the explosion of flammable gases and liquids, and it supersedes the inflammatory byproduct of people's greed. That if there is for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, I'm choosing to bring to this greed that created this, I'm choosing to bring to this a vision, a commitment to seeing this as an opportunity for love in action. And whether it's, I understand what you're talking about, November being in Portland, whether it's love in action because I'm seeing the planet Earth heal itself. I'm seeing divine intervention and asking for divine intervention to move animals and sea life out of the way of danger. I'm seeing divine intervention and that people are choosing to stop living their life from their egos and in their head and saying, you know what, I'm going to drop into my heart and I'm going to activate a higher wisdom. I'm going to trust my way through this as a force of love that is indistinguishable. And I'm going to see that I am going to find a way through this because this is teaching me how to learn, how to trust in myself. And that this gives us an opportunity in the Keep It Real arena to constantly bombarding each other, the planet, and this situation with more love, with more good faith, with more trust than greed has the ability to damage it.
You know, when we're looking at all these various things that people have seen, these visions of various kinds of devastation, in the virtual auditorium, I had someone asking about the wave of fire. I did ask for him to clarify that a little bit more, but, have any of you heard about waves of fire in any way in terms of the oil spill?
Well, I know they're burning off the fuel. I had to put that out because of the...
That smelled awful, believe me. The first time they were burning it, the wind must have been just right. The smell in New Orleans was awful. That horrible, oily, unmistakable odor that if you've ever been near oil wells, you'd never forget.
It's toxic, too.
It wasn't exactly thrilling. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the possibility of using a nuclear weapon to actually fuse the rock over the well because of the pressure of this oil coming out is supposed to be so intense. They're afraid of the failure of the relief well and so forth and so on. They're saying the only way to do so is to use a nuclear device to create enough heat to actually fuse the rock. Now, when I look at that, I really get a bad feeling about this. Linda, what does Abraham tell you about the possibility of using a nuclear weapon to try and seal this?
Abraham says no. That yes, it may seal that pipe, but the devastation that would occur deeper in the earth will only tap into that lake of methane gas.
It's like a nerve plexus. This area, this drilling is like if there's a nerve plexus in the body, this is a nerve plexus in the Earth's body. Is that correct, Linda?
It's like a chakra. For those of you that are aware of chakras, they are energy points in our body. Well, this is an energy point on our planet that they tapped into. And, as Abraham said before, many different messages were given to BP not to drill in this area. And, different situations were created to try to deter them of this, and it was all ignored because of the greed and the pressure that they were put under by shareholders. And so Abraham says the messages were given, but they were ignored, and so this is the result of it. But no, setting off a nuclear explosion in that area would be very devastating to the planet. And he says this is where you will see the waves of fire.
Well, just looking at it in terms of the average citizen without much knowledge of nuclear devices and how they work, this well is a long ways under the water, and sending a nuclear device down there and setting off a very large, my impression of nuclear devices is they have very large, thick explosions. Very large explosions seem to me to be very similar to something like an earthquake. And we've seen what they've done in Indonesia. Yeah.
Right, and put that right on a major fault line, on a major fissure that they've already weakened.
Right by a pool of methane gas, too.
Right. And I know that the suggestion has come up because the Russian government has successfully stopped, I believe it was 5 other underwater leaks by setting off a small nuclear device that turned it into volcanic glass and closed it. But those were completely different situations than what we're looking at now. But I just thought I'd throw out why that suggestion has come up, because the Russian government says we've used it 5 times successfully.
Yeah.
Abraham says there are many different. Abraham says there are many different spiritual beings that are trying to deter people from this and to persuade them to go a different direction, and they are being ignored.
There's been a lot of talk that this whole situation, where it may or may not have been caused by deliberate actions of person or persons unknown, but it has been used to their best advantage by not really doing much to contain the oil or attempt to stop the spill in early stages. What does Abraham have to say about that?
Abraham said that they really did not perceive this to be the problem that it has become. BP, they're talking about BP, did not perceive it to be the problem that it has become. And they really had no solutions for even a smaller problem, solutions that had been tested and proven. And we just assumed, humanity, our government, just assumed that they had those. They've never dealt with anything of this proportion. And so they really don't know what to do.
The Danish government offered to send over 3 state-of-the-art, fully equipped skimmers immediately to the area to start containing it, and Obama said, no, keep them away, we don't want them. What was that about?
Abraham says Obama wanted BP to take the responsibility.
Well, that was brilliant. Great. So it gushes out why he's playing playing the blame game of who's going to take responsibility.
But
there's been
Obama
a lot of
or BP have ever dealt with a situation as this, and so the answers are not there.
It seems like a no-brainer. Whether they're taking responsibility or not, if somebody is saying, we've got the means to come and clean this up while you guys hash out who's responsible, wouldn't the intelligent thing to do be to say, yeah, clean it up while we work out who's responsible, instead of saying, no, let it gush out while we play this blame game? That just seems completely just, they're words that I can't even use on the Internet.
On the air. Yeah, there's been a lot of suggestion that Obama is using this oil spill to, I guess, push forward his own personal political agenda, which is some vague socialist, I never get exactly what he's supposed to be doing with it, but it's some sort of a conspiracy that he's using this for his best advantage, and that the intention is to bring the oil companies under the government's thumb, especially financially.
Right. In addition to the skimmers, which we're told to stay away, we've got Kevin Costner's brother, who came up with this device that separates oil from water. There were 3 of them out there at the time that could have started using immediately, and the federal government said, no, you can't use them. Now they have 30 out there, and the federal government is still saying, no, you can't use them. Now, what the hell is that about? What does Abraham have to say about that? I mean, now it's become clear that it's out of control, but still they have a means with things there to help. And it won't obviously completely neutralize the situation, but it would be better than it is right now, and the federal government is still stopping it. And when skimmers try to get out there, the federal government calls the skimmers back and says something like, no, you don't have enough life jackets on board. You have to let the federal government is doing everything it can. Every time one step gets made to clean this up, the federal government takes it a step and moves it back 2 steps. What does the Abraham Group have to say about that cat and mouse game?
They said if a decision is made, that person takes responsibility for the issue. And when there is a failure, they then have to take responsibility for the failure. So doing nothing, they are avoiding the responsibility.
I never heard of the idea of no decision becomes your decision.
Well, even if Kevin Costner's machines didn't work, Kevin Costner and his brother's machines didn't work, and even if the skimmers didn't work, people would feel that at least they were trying to make some action, as opposed to them just trying to sabotage every possible positive action that is presented.
There comes a time where people just need to stand up for themselves. If you think about it, in any natural disaster, who is your first line of defense? Your community. So the federal government isn't taking action. I don't know what people's opinion is on Arizona, but it wasn't taking action there, so they stepped up to the plate and said, okay, you have no answers, we're going to solve it. Right. With the oil and the people down in that area, they can take action. In my eyes, who cares what the federal government says? It's your state, it's your beaches, take action. And, worry about the consequences later. At least you're trying to do something. But really, and this is no different than any other natural disaster, really, the communities will have to step up to the plate and take action on their own instead of waiting around to get permission from the federal government.
Unfortunately, the federal government has been quite efficiently sabotaging those efforts as well.
Exactly.
Well, then there's something seriously wrong.
Medicinal marijuana, they arrested people when states passed those laws. They're doing the same thing in terms of states' own efforts to contain the oil spill. It's unfortunate. We saw it with the health care plan, and we're seeing it with a lot of things, that the federal government is really not letting states' rights work the same way they did in the past.
I have noticed that. My mother keeps warning me about that. This lady's really got it in for Obama. She's the most peaceful, loving lady you could ever meet, but boy, I'll tell you, she is just on a warpath with this. It is very strange. Never seen anything like it.
Well, the whole idea of states' rights is what precipitated our Civil War. And, is that what we're heading to again? Are disasters like this, and in the wake of other political events, Is that going to cause the United States to do the same thing the USSR did?
I don't know, but I thought the federal government was supposed to support the states. The states go to them and say, this is what we need. And then the federal government does what they need to do to support the states. You know, whether it's a flood and there's been a federal disaster, you know, declaration, whether it's a hurricane, tornado, whatever, and you get that declaration, they're not necessarily supposed to go in there and take charge of everything. They're supposed to say, what do you need? And then let the states decide what they need. Something went wrong somewhere.
We saw it with Katrina. We saw it with, like I said, the health care plan. We've seen it with other less well-known plans or laws or agendas, whatever term you want to slap on them. We're seeing it now with this oil spill. You know, is part of the great change we're going to see over the coming months related, and coming months at the end, well, it's not that far to 2012 now. Is that, you know, all related to political changes too? You know, what does Abraham have to say, Linda?
Abraham says to look at November's mother's life, that in her lifetime, the changes that have occurred, in the early part of her lifetime, each person took responsibility for their life, for their security, for their welfare, for, you know, financial situations, health situations, legal situations. They took responsibility for it. And what humanity has now done is we gave full responsibility of our lives to our government, blindly gave it to them, expecting our government to take care of all of our needs. When we were the ones. Abraham says humanity was the ones. Okay, they said basically the United States is what they're focusing on this time. We were the ones that gave that to the government. And now we're saying that it doesn't work, that our government does not have the ability to take care of us. And then we are complaining about this because we are not taking responsibility. And this is what each one of these disasters are teaching us, is that we have to prepare for the worst. We have to take care of ourselves, not being in fear, but being in power.
You know, it reminds me of something Plato wrote about. And Plato said the problem with any time we have a society where we construct some leader and put them in place is that then you don't lead yourself.
That's so true.
Yes.
You say to the leader, that's your job. You lead us now. And
everybody looked at Obama as this great leader into change. I wasn't sure what he intended to change. But, yeah. I
never said it was going to be good change.
No, he never promised a good change. He just promised
that we needed it.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, you know, not to get too political, but I was a supporter, and I voted for Obama because I really did want to see a change from the status quo. And boy, was I fooled. I got my change, but it certainly wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah. You know, and that's the thing, too, is we're seeing a growing dissatisfaction among Americans with their government. We're seeing it focused especially on disaster responses, things such as Katrina and there again with the oil spill. And some people were asking earlier in the virtual auditorium about whether or not people's personal response to the oil spill was very similar to Katrina, and it is. We're seeing an increased rate of suicide. Someone else suggested the suicides are related to a slow leaking of methane from the ocean. I don't know if that's true or not true. I know the ones that have hit the headlines have been people who are intimately involved with the Gulf of Mexico, you know, as far as being people on boats out in the water regularly. Maybe that's possible. I don't know. But I know that, you know, I'm seeing a lot of depression. I'm seeing a lot of worries and stress. I'm seeing a lot of uneasiness. You know, very similar things that we saw in the aftermath of Katrina. And that's all across the Gulf Coast. I mean, New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. we're seeing it over and over again. And, it's affecting a much larger area than Katrina really did. And it indicates that people are not very well prepared to deal with stress and change in their lives. And is that, that could very well be related to a lot of things we've talked about tonight, that we aren't using our personal power in the best way that we can, because when change comes, we're incapable of reacting to it.
Or we're not practicing responding to it in a way in which we keep our equilibrium and we know how to take advantage of where we can move forward instead of fixating on where we can't. We are letting...
Abraham says change does not always have to be negative. Sometimes change can be a motivational factor to make changes in your life.
Right. It's always, even good change, though, can be very, very stressful. I mean, think back to your own life, when something very positive happens, often, the sensations of stress were very similar to the ones that you'd experienced over negative change. Think about how tired you are when you start a new job, how edgy you can be when you're in a new relationship, how stressful, the first year of marriage is to most people, and so forth and so on. These are positive changes in people's lives, yet at the same time, they result in stress responses.
Yeah, they say that the birth of a child can be as stressful as the death of a loved one, and the impending marriage can be as stressful as an impending divorce.
Well, there's two kinds of stress. I mean, we look at stress as being all negative. There's eustress and distress. The good kind of stress is going to get you through to the other side. The distress is going to try to hold you in place.
That's a very good way of putting it, November. I like that. Now, we do have a question from the virtual auditorium. Let me scroll back up and catch it. It said, what would you suggest for us to do to get everyday people like us to change from a service to self to a service of others way of thinking? Any input from any of you?
Interestingly enough, between March and April, I was dealing with 4 deaths. And one of the things that really accentuated is the importance of connecting to other people. And that each moment has the potential for being our last opportunity to love and to share in this life as we know it, not forever. I mean, we'll just graduate to another classroom. But when we're talking to somebody on the phone, one of the things that became really clear to me is I could be talking to somebody at customer service and then jump in the shower and slip on a bar of soap and hit my head, and the last person that I talked to was a person at customer service. That could be my last opportunity to love someone and to connect and to be the best person that I can be and make that moment of connection have meaning. And it really helped me to just understand that the person that I'm talking to, the relationship in front of my face, this is the most important person in my life. To treat each person, no matter how transient, when they have my immediate attention, when they're in my life, whether it's because I'm standing in line at the grocery store or whether I'm passing somebody on the street that's jogging and I'm waving hello to them, that to make that relationship, to make that connection to be one where you show up as if this could be your last relationship, this could be your last opportunity to love and to share and to bond. And what you find is that your need to connect to people authentically, your need to make this interaction be about each of us feeling loved and feeling cared for and sharing that honoring of ourselves and the other person. And it brought such tremendous meaning and grace and dignity that allowed me to put one foot in front of the other and move forward. And it is remarkable how powerful it will change your life when you are sensitized to bringing that quality of love and presence to every single person that you interact with.
That's interesting, to think about, but at the same time, the cautious urban sort of self that I have within me as well, because I meet many people during the course of a day which may have very negative intentions towards me and my vicinity. How do you keep yourself safe while at the same time engage others as best you can?
Another thing, too, is to keep in mind doing the right thing is not always the easiest. Over the last several months, we've been faced with a lot of things here as with aging parents and them needing assistance and trying to, take care of our own family and the extended family and everything else. And it just dawned on me one day, sometimes doing the right thing is not the easiest. You just do it anyways. Just because that's the right thing. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out what the right thing is.
Well, the right thing is what helps you sleep at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And that's something that you feel your way through. When I'm dealing with people that don't have the best intentions, when they don't have other people's best interest at heart, one of the things I try to immediately remind myself is that what I'm looking at is the stuff that person is here to grow beyond. That they are just as much divine love and wisdom as I am. I'm just looking at the stuff they're here to grow beyond, and I'm not going to confuse who and what they are with the stuff they're here to grow beyond. And I'm not saying that it doesn't mean that you should abandon appropriate and healthy boundaries. If you know there's somebody out there that has problems that makes them a danger to you or to your family, you can still see them as divine love, ask for divine intervention in their life, and choose that the only power you recognize is divine love and wisdom, and that you see them as growing beyond this. You see them as beyond this, and you're not a person that is constantly reinforcing that they are that negativity, that that's how they will behave, and that you're not showing up on the planet Earth and contributing to keeping them in that limited box.
I have to admit, I frequently encounter people who are living in a limited box in the parking lot during dark hours. I don't know why darkness has anything to do with it, but perhaps, people feel more anonymous in the dark. I don't know. But anyhow, it's something that I regularly encounter, and I'm sure that everybody who lives in the city does encounter. And there's people that really, they honestly would mug you for the quarter in your pocket, or the quarter you might have in your pocket. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea why. I mean, do they really need that quarter that bad? They could have asked for it, but that's not their choice. As far as how to help them grow, I figured not presenting myself as a victim ready for victimizing at least reduces their frequency of indulging in negative behavior.
The bottom line is you can't help you. They have to do their own growth. But what you can do is you can have a relationship with your own mind that helps you grow beyond being in a fear-based response. You can act instead of react out of fear. You can act out of love instead of react out of fear. You can act out of recognizing the truth that sets you free. The bottom line is that you can support them in growth by being one person that shows up on the planet is seeing them beyond that, because that's the energy that they get on a soul level, is the reminder that they are beyond it. But past that, they're the ones that have to find their ass with 50 grabs. They're the ones that have to do their own personal growth. They're the ones that got themselves with their free will and made those choices, and they're the ones that have to self-resurrect. you came here to self-resurrect your life and to move forward and to realize who you are. I came here to clean up my own backyard. We each are accountable and have sovereignty over our own mind.
And that's something that we need to keep in mind too, is, as Abraham was saying, that, the events with the oil spill were caused by people's actions, is that, they have their own personal growth to do. We can't change their educational plan, you might say, but we can choose how we are reacting to it. And by being more proactive in terms of the oil itself, as well as our own backyards, you might say, we can reduce the impact that it has on our lives. Whether we're choosing to personally volunteer to scrub up brown pelicans that are covered in oil, or to send money to the Audubon Society to continue their efforts to do so, or by simply reducing our own oil consumption, they're all little things that we can all do.
I agree.
Abraham says that the biggest lesson that humanity is supposed to learn from this is responsibility. And you may, as November pointed out, she lives in Oregon. She can't go to the Louisiana or the Florida or Mississippi coastlines. Anyway, she can't go to the coastlines to clean up the birds, but she can take responsibility for her life, and she can touch other people's lives, as Wishali was pointing out. She can touch their lives in a positive way, giving them hope. She can create positive energy that ripples out. We can all do this, and we should all be doing this, because this is our lesson, to have value and respect for humanity.
Couldn't have said that one better. That was great.
Yeah, when we don't have respect for ourselves, we end up in situations like this. Right. Too often, I think, over the last century, we've been focused on the religion of money. And I'm talking as a society as a whole, not as individuals, but as a society as a whole. Money has been the yardstick by which we were judged. Money was the yardstick by which we were given opportunities. And is that right? Or should it be judged, more on ability and other things?
Well, how's that working for humanity? It's
not real well.
And so we have to see that. We have to have the awareness that is not, that's not working for us. So we have to change. A change has to be created for us, in which humanity takes responsibility and does not look to government to take care of them. So whether it's, protecting yourself, feeding yourself, having a job, financially supporting yourself, doing whatever you can possibly do to take pressure off of the government, because they're failing us. They're failing humanity. They're failing our whole population.
Well, we've created a generation of people who have a sense of entitlement. Life isn't fair. Well, I said it when I was young, and I was told, life isn't fair. You just got to do what you got to do. Yeah. And now they're like, grades are not fair, so we're not going to give grades anymore. Or scoring you in a game is not fair, so we're not going to score you anymore. And all these things are like to make things fair. Well, in reality, it didn't make anything fair. It simply gave an unfair advantage to people who didn't want to put much effort into it. Be it in education, in their jobs, in their economic success, in their day-to-day life. And we need to, really take a look at ourselves and say, okay, it's time I take responsibility for me. And if I want to do X, Y, or Z, I've got to come up with the means to do X, Y, or Z. It's not going to descend from like manna from heaven or in the form of some government program.
You know, one of the things I find the most disturbing about this oil spill is, you know what, people can move. I mean, they can. The animals can't. They don't know any difference. Those poor things out there suffering beyond suffering. I mean, just imagine being one of those pelicans for 5 minutes and how that must feel. Nobody really cares. And it just drives
and also
me nuts.
there was news reports that a lot of the larger sea animals, such as the porpoises and sharks and so forth and so on, were moving into a band along the Mississippi coast because it was clear water.
Yeah.
And the fear was that as the oil spread further, they would be trapped. Well, now we're seeing probably the beginnings of that because tar balls and oil has made the beaches in Mississippi too.
Can you imagine the fear they must be experiencing trying to I mean, it'd be like you being in the midst of a raging forest fire and trying to figure out how to get out of it.
Or being in New Orleans and trying to get out for a hurricane.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar.
There you go.
Yeah. 2 bridges, that's it. You know, everybody's got to go over them. Yeah, and except in their cases, there may not be bridges left. There may not be a path through the water that they could take should they be able to find it. At least in our cases, the bridges have paved roads and signs leading to them.
It's basically setting up for an enormous domino effect, and it takes time for that to happen. You can drop the domino. Here in Oregon, it would take a long time for it to get to the Gulf Coast. However, you know, the animals become depleted. You know, they have their purpose. They do their thing out there in the ocean. I mean, you know, it does. It just ripples on down the line. So there's probably impacts and problems we're going to see that we haven't even thought of yet.
Well, there's discussion about everything from the toxic level of the dispersants that were used, whether the dispersants were a good idea at all because all it did was send the water under or send the oil under the water. You know, to continued problems caused by the cleanup effort itself, and even you know, the discussion about the possibility of using a nuclear warhead to cause an explosion under the ocean. You know, all of those things are going to have ramifications far into the future.
I guess my whole point in all that was preparation. Now, you don't have to become obsessed about it. You know, having, I don't know, food, just, you know, just some kind of preparation like you would for any type of disaster situation scenario. And just be prepared, you know, without being obsessive about it.
And being prepared, even when you go and you talk to survivalists, to preparation, emergency preparedness experts, they're going to tell you that 90% of it boils down to what you have in your head. It's not what you've got in a vast storehouse under your house. It's not what you've got in your backpack. It's what you have in your head. Your ability to adapt to stress, to change, to shifting events and shifting priorities. All the same things that we've been talking about tonight that are important in terms of taking back our personal power. Survival is really about just keeping your personal power. That's how I see it anyhow. Well, Shali, how about you?
Couldn't have said that better, sweetheart. And I like to think that I'm on the planet at this time because I choose to contribute as a force of love, and I continue to ask for divine and angelic intervention, ask for this to bring the best possible outcome for all sentient beings involved. And if there was a karmic stone that I was going to put my shoulder to that wheel and turn it, it was going to be one of the voices of constantly asking for love to intervene and for this to become a monument to the power of love. Because if all I have at the end of the day to exercise with any ultimate state of power is my free will, that's what I choose to do with it.
Very well said. Now, ladies, we are nearing the end of the program, so I'm going to ask each of you for a brief last thought to leave the audience with. Linda, we're going to start with you first.
Abraham says that they have great, I see it as he because I only hear one voice, but he has great appreciation that you have opened up this consciousness to share with your listeners, because so many times people just hide in their homes, hide in fear, but you have opened up this consciousness to allow each one of us to share the messages that we feel and use in our lives. And people are seeking answers, and this is what you are giving them. So Abraham has great gratitude for this. And he just says, function in love. Have forgiveness for those that have created this, and function in love, and just pull in as much positive white light and energy of love as possible, and spread that yourself. Individually spread that love to everyone that you touch in your life, and they will spread it to others.
Very well said. November, you're next.
Last thoughts. If it's not working, find another way. That's it.
Yep. Same old thing.
Yeah.
If first you don't succeed, try again, right? And with Shelley.
I want to underscore what Abraham said, and thank you, Gia, for holding the space for this conversation to happen. And there's something that I tell myself constantly, because it's the truth that sets me free, and that is, I am a force of divine love, and no one and no thing on this planet has the power to change that.
Very well said. Yeah, the whole issue is so much bigger than what we can cover in 2 hours. I have to admit that. And unfortunately, we have reached the end of our time together. So, folks, we have run out of time. Once again, I would like to thank Shelley, November, and Linda for joining us tonight and being such interesting and fascinating guests. I've enjoyed the program with everybody tonight, and I hope all of you have as well. And that you found it provided you plenty of food for thought and more illumination for your personal journey towards truth. Join us again next week for another episode of The Dawn of Shades. Sure to be another fascinating conversation once again. With that, we are out of time. I'm your host, Gia Scott, and good night.
Delta.